Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another one of my quick hits, which is part of our boxing hangouts. And on these, we get to react to the news of the day. And on this one, I'm going to react to an announcement made by Carl Froch. And so we've entitled it Carl Froch and the Super Middleweights. No, that's not a singing group. It's Carl Froch and some of the other contenders in his division and how his announcement to vacate his world title affects them. As always, the man who produces our hangouts and joins me, he is a uber boxing fan and a knowledgeable one as well, Dan Parks. Dan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm awesome, Al. Thank you so much, and I'm really excited about these fights coming up. And you're doing several trips, I think, coming up into England over the next couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, and of course the interest so strong over there in all these fights. And the topic of tonight's quick hits is about what's going on in the UK. So yes, I am going to be headed to Monte Carlo, poor me, on February 21st. The first time I've been there in 30 years. I was there about 30 years ago, the first time back, to announce the Gennady Golovkin-Martin Murray fight. That'll be on Channel 5 in the UK, one of the over-the-air terrestrial stations there. And that fight should be a good one with Martin Murray, who twice before almost won championships, taking on the rising superstar Gennady Golovkin. So that should be an interesting fight. And then I'm going to go to the UK right after that, go to London, and appear on Boxing Tonight, which is a show on BT Sports. And so I'll have a chance to do some things for the boxing fans over in the UK. Speaking of boxing fans in the UK, of course, they have a great interest in Carl Froch, who has been an iconic fighter in the last 6 or 7 years, fought possibly the toughest schedule of anyone in the sport of boxing. He's been a several-time world champion at 168 pounds, and he decided to vacate his world title. And the reason he did so is because he, instead of fighting James DeGale, who's the mandatory challenger, he wants to go after one huge fight before he retires from boxing, and he believes that huge fight is against Julio Cesar Chaves Jr., former middleweight champion who's now up at 168 pounds. And Froch is hoping that fight will happen this year. That fight could have happened in late March or in April, but Froch had an injury that wouldn't allow him to train for that fight. So instead, Chavez Jr. will face Andre Fonfara, who's a very good light heavyweight. And it's not an easy fight for Chavez Jr., but he's hoping he can win that. And then later in the year, he and Froch can fight each other in this big fight that Froch believes will be the curtain call of his excellent career. Now, what he leaves behind in terms of title matches at 168, I mentioned James DeGale, who is the #1 contender, also from Great Britain, whose only losses to George Groves, the man who Carl Froch had those 2 memorable matches with this past year and a half. And James DeGale is a terrific fighter, and the man he is going to face for the vacant title is Andre Dirrell. Andre Dirrell, you'll recall, was in the original Super 6 tournament that Showtime put on, and performed very well in that tournament, fighting Carl Froch to a standstill in England, and coming away with a loss, but a very close fight that I had as a draw. And it was very close, and Dirrell fought very well, and then he won by disqualification over Arthur Abraham in a fight in which he was winning all the way through, though he had been stunned by Abraham, was hit when he was on the mat by Arthur Abraham and hurt badly, and Abraham was disqualified. Because of the injuries suffered from that, Andre Dirrell was out of boxing for a couple of years. Came back, he said, put together a winning streak, and now he's ready to challenge for a world title. And his match with James DeGale, I believe, pits 2 superb boxers. James DeGale and Andre Dirrell both have amazing technical skills in the ring. Some would suggest the only difference between the two might be who can dig down deeper when they need to in this fight. And that may very well be the case. They both have great hand speed. They both have good boxing skills. They both hit with authority, but they're not huge punchers. And it's going to be a very skillful match when those two get together. And I think it augurs well for a 168-pound division. Of course, there are many other 168-pounders out there, and it's remains a very good division in the sport of boxing. And so even after Carl Froch has left, of course, the man in that division is Andre Ward, who is now going to get back in the ring, and we'll see whether he might fight the winner of DeGale and Dirrell. Remember, Dirrell and Andre Ward were supposed to fight each other in the Super 6, the very next fight of that tournament, when Dirrell pulled out because of the injuries he suffered. So the 168-pound division now again picking up steam, and we'll see how the DeGale-Dirrell fight plays into what the next stages of 168 pounds are, and whether Andre Ward figures into that. But for Carl Froch, with the announcement that he's vacating the world title that he had, he moves on, he thinks, to a major fight. And let me say this, since we're on the subject of Carl Froch. Should he win his final fight, even if he doesn't, to be perfectly candid, I think Carl Froch has earned himself strong contention for the Boxing Hall of Fame because of the second portion of his career that has been so extraordinary. And I think he's been, along with several other fighters, very responsible for the renaissance of boxing in the United Kingdom. So we'll see how the actions by Carl Froch plays out in this 168-pound division, and we'll look forward to at least one really good match with James DeGale and Andre Dirrell.